Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Barely Legal Podcast. I am so honored today to have the guest on that we have today. So quickly have we grown, and this is definitely the next tier for us. So, on today's show, we have Joe Redner, which, if you are from the Tampa Bay area or who have ever lived here, you know the name well. He was gracious enough to come and sit down and talk with us today about his history and kind of his legal escapades, both previous and current. And we are so excited to have him. Thanks, Joe. How's it going?
It's going well, except for that little loss I took in the Supreme Court of Florida, of course.
And I think we're going to spend a lot of time on that today. And I'm excited to ask you about that so that our listeners can kind of understand the state of the union, as it were, for the legalization of medical marijuana and being able to grow medical marijuana on your property. So we're gonna get to that for sure. But for those that listen to us who don't know who you are, or maybe don't know your story, I wanted to kind of start there. And as I explained to you before the show, I grew up in the area, so I've been aware of you as long as I've been aware, but I don't know your full story. I'm somewhat of a blank slate. I did some research, and I understand you were born in New Jersey and you came down here, but I kind of want to go through that with you. Is that okay?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so born in 1940
Correct.
in New Jersey,
In Hackensack, New Jersey,
and how long did you live there?
till I was eight.
Eight and
7 or 8. I'm not sure exactly when we came down here. We moved right down the street here to to Tampa Street, right down the street from Columbus Drive.
do you remember New Jersey at all, or
I remember, well, my mother worked at the Summit Home for Children in Summit, New Jersey, and it wasn't for delinquents. It was another kind of home
sure,
for overprivileged children, really.
overprivileged?
Yeah.
Okay,
Where parents wanted to go off for the summer and
right.
have some place to put their children and stuff. So anyway, she worked there. My brother and I have one sibling, Bill. He's dead. He was 2 years older than me,
Okay.
and she worked there. So we lived in that home with her where she worked.
And then did you come straight to Tampa, or was there somewhere in
Yeah,
between?
we left there and came to Tampa. She had divorced my father very early on. I don't remember him. So
You didn't have a relationship
yeah,
with him?
none. My brother did. He remembered him,
Right.
but I didn't. And we came down here. My grandmother was down here already. She had a house she rented, and we came in and moved in with her.
Okay.
I
And
remember on Tampa Street. It was right down here on Tampa Street, and the trolleys used to go in front of the.
when would that have been? That would have been
That would have
what?
been in 48, 47, 48, 49. Yeah.
Okay. And then where'd you go to school?
I went to school at, oh, wow. It's right back in there, but BC Graham.
Okay.
And then to Mendenhall, to Oak Grove Junior High School, and then to Chamberlain High School, which I didn't graduate from.
Yeah, I read something about they wanted you on the basketball team and the football team, but you decided pretty early on it wasn't
Well,
for you.
yeah, I wasn't beating my head up against any wall. That just wasn't going to happen. They gave me a helmet
Sure.
that was too small for my head, and then said, "Go run to the wall." And I said, "That hurts my head."
Yeah.
And they said, "Yeah, that's what builds your character." And I said, "No, it builds your character. I'll see you later."
Yeah. I had a similar. I went to St. Pete High, and I remember the helmets being too small and not
It
having much.
hurt.
Oh, the kid. Well, today their helmets are like
Oh yeah, they understand the
they're like
value
Mercedes
of them.
Benz with airbags.
Yeah.
But back then it was a piece of foam rubber and a hard piece of plastic. It was
Yeah.
awful. Yeah.
And the inside was it just crushed your head
I remember
if it
it.
was too small.
And plus, my head is the size of a
Yeah,
watermelon.
you got a
so,
big head.
Yes. Anyway, did you work at all in school?
I did. I sold papers right down here on the corner. On two corners, Florida and Columbus Drive, and Tampa Street and Columbus Drive. I changed sometimes, but mostly Tampa Street. Yeah, I was there when the Korean War ended. I
Yeah.
was selling papers because I remember saying the Korean War is over because people didn't have a lot of air conditioners then in their cars, so the windows were all down.
So they could hear you.
You scream at them, yeah.
Oh wow, that's crazy. So after newspaper, what did you get into?
Well, we moved over to Hillsborough on Rome, and a guy downstairs had an upholstery shop and for cars, and I would go to work in his upholstery shop, and he would I would take them out. He would make the covers. I'd put the covers on them and put them back in.
Do you, I mean, kind of reverse engineering your history just from what I know of you, it would seem to me that you have kind of a preternatural, like a unique knowledge or knack for business or figuring out how business works. Is that something you had early on, or is that something you built over time? Or
I don't like details, so yeah, no, I'm not. I don't have a knack for business. I have pretty good logic.
sure,
Um, I don't like businesses, but I understand people.
for somebody who
So
doesn't like businesses, you
yeah,
sure got a lot of them going.
yeah.
So
But when you understand people, then you can get into businesses where they really don't understand people, and you
right,
can kind of build yourself a little niche in there. And that happened in my adult business in the businesses like the Mons Venus. I just all the trappings I just didn't pay any attention to. Just the prettiest girls I could that you could have, and prettiest women. I'm sure a lot of people out there think when I say girls, I'm talking about young girls. I'm not.
right. No,
I'm talking about pretty girls.
sure, sure. When you say understand people, where do you think that came from?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't know, but I kind of can talk to a person for a little while and like questions like about the death penalty and how about people that are being killed that never committed a crime and they're being put to death because they got the wrong person and we know that you're for the death penalty.
Right.
What do you think about things like that? And they don't.
Yeah.
The problem is they don't
No,
think
they
about
just take
innocent
the
people.
party line and they toe it.
Yeah, so I kind of get I judge people on things like that,
Has that always been an interest of you from early on, as far as, you know?
and make let me get this
Sure, yeah.
and making things easier because they it's like in a strip club. Sometimes the customers get rambunctious and they get up on the stage. Well, then it's a thing between them and the security. And it's always a problem. They're going to get in a fight, blah, blah, blah. They're up there. It's a spectacle. The girls are second to it. Then what I do is just change things around a little bit. I say, get off the stage to the dancers. I don't say a word to the customer that gets
Hmm.
up there. Get off the stage to the dancers. The rest of the dancers get down. The rest of the customers will tell them to get down.
Yeah.
Believe me, in a hurry. So I fixed the situation. I don't even have that situation
You just
anymore.
brought on 200 employees to help get this person off the stage.
Yeah, his peers. Yeah,
Right, that's smart. So, well, but I mean, that's a unique talent that not a lot of people
yeah.
have. I think,
It's
you know,
common sense.
again, a
Yeah,
talent that not a lot of, I tell you, not a lot of attorneys that I run into have it. I mean, everybody wants to, go through red lights instead of making a right
yeah.
or going around. So
Well,
that's
these are
definitely
people that I think that they have good memories. That's how they get along in society. They're taught what to say, what to do, and they listen to their authority figures. Of course, if their authority figure gets it wrong, they get it wrong,
right.
and that happens a lot.
Well, gosh, in these days, I can't think of a better assessment of what's going on politically. But again, I keep saying this, but I think we could do 10 podcasts with you. So hopefully we'll get to all this stuff. But so after high school, you were doing upholstery, and then
Well, no, that was during high school.
during high school, okay,
As soon as I finished high school, I didn't finish high school. As soon as I was out of high school, I had to go to work when I was 16. I needed to go to work. My mother supported us. She worked hard. She was a waitress
so did you
at
leave school
Madison
to
Drug
work?
Store. Actually, yeah. And
Okay,
I went to work for Madison Drug Store in their warehouse,
okay.
filling orders.
And how long did you do that for?
I did it for about 3 years,
Okay,
and
so that would put you what, like 19?
yeah,
Okay,
probably yeah. Then I went to work for Tampa Towel and Terrazzo, and I've held construction jobs and did carpentry work for as a subcontractor. I've done a lot of things.
And that kind of was your entry point to the clubs, correct? Weren't you doing work for someone else who had
No,
a?
I was actually the Pad Lounge, who Pat Matticini owned,
Okay,
who was accused of being in the mob. But anyway, he owned the Pad Lounge, and I used to go in there and I drank in there, and I was responsible drinker,
sure,
and I didn't get crazy, lose my judgment. So he asked me one day if I wanted to work on the door there. And I said, yeah, on Friday and Saturday nights. I said, yeah. And he kind of liked me working on the door. He got a good count,
sure.
and I didn't drink much of his beer.
Low
So,
risk,
yeah. So he asked when a job came open at the Deep South, which was a go-go bar.
right?
It was on Rome and Hillsborough. And he asked me if I wanted to go over there as the manager. And I said, yeah, I'd like to try it. And I
Would
went
this have
over
been in
there.
the '60s sometime?
This would be in 1972.
Okay,
1972.
so you were 22,
No,
32,
42.
born in 40, 72, 32.
32. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
And I, well, anyway, I worked for Levitt's Furniture for a long time before
Sure.
that. I forgot.
No, it's fine.
I worked for 4 or 5 years for Levitt's.
Okay.
And
But I want to talk about the Deep South. The Deep South's getting juicy. So I
Deep,
wanna-
the Deep South had go-go girls. They come out with pasties and jing strings, and they danced on a stage, and then they got off. There was no stripping or
Right.
anything like that.
So how long did you do that for?
3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Now, at some point, I'm kind of aware just from reading my Joe Redner history that there was some cases that came through that kind of alerted you to a potential for how
Yeah,
to make that more profitable and a bigger enterprise.
Well, yeah, I was reading the paper, going to work one day or something, or sitting somewhere. I don't know. Anyway, there was a case in the paper, short little story, and it said that the Supreme Court had ruled in a case called Erznosnik versus Jacksonville.
Glad you pronounced it because I wasn't going to try to.
And I'm not sure I got it right. But it was in Jacksonville. It was a drive-in movie theater. They had shown some fleeting glimpses of nudity on the thing. Someone complained about it. The police went in and arrested the camera operator.
Right.
They got convicted in court, and they appealed it. That's my first time I learned. They appealed it right straight to the Supreme Court as a fundamental speech issue.
Right.
And it went right straight through, which is it's hardly is unheard
Doesn't
of.
happen much. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Supreme Court ruled that if nudity was contained in the content of speech, dance is speech. If you dance nude, it's the content.
Right.
That's how I figure. Well, let's see if they meant what they said. Let's
Right.
see. Let's go nude and see if, because everybody, everybody I talked to, because the owner, Bobby Rodriguez, sent one of his lawyer friends in to talk to me because I kept pushing him. Let's go nude. Let's go nude. The Supreme Court said this. Aber Gow, he said. And he sent him in, and I talked to him, and he went away. I never heard another thing about it.
Right.
So I worked there for a while. Then I worked at Porky's
Okay.
on Columbus Drive for Pat Matticini and some other people. And it was just a go-go club.
Right. So no one would take you up on your idea.
No.
Okay.
So then I wasn't working, and I was looking for something to do, and Gene Radney.
I know the last name.
Gene Radney was a bondsman.
Okay.
He owned a bar called Dorio's on Hesperdes in Hillsborough. It was a beer joint.
Right.
So I went to him and said, you know, it was closed. He couldn't keep it open. Didn't do enough business. He
Sure.
wasn't making money. He was going broke there. I said, you know, I want to try something. And the Rodriguez won't do it, and nobody else will do it. So why don't you let me try it? Here, you're closed anyway. And I'll bring. I had about $1,500, so I said I'll just put it in here. We'll remodel, do a cheap remodel, and I'll put a stage in here, and we'll go nude and see what happens.
Right.
All hell broke loose.
I imagine.
the city, the city went crazy. They didn't even talk to me. They just started coming in and
Police.
arresting me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just used different tactics to
Stay
to
a
get
step ahead, or yeah.
yeah, or to thwart them. And they would do things like they would run in the front door and arrest the dancer and the manager. The dancer that was nude on stage, if she was nude, they would arrest her.
Right.
And I put a button outside with a light inside, and I had a doorman outside. I had him collecting the money outside instead of inside, so it didn't cost me anything. And when the police ran around the corner, he'd step on the light would go off, and the dancer, the nude dancer, if she was nude, would run in the back, and one would run up on the stage and had her clothes on, and she'd be dancing. The police come in, and everything was all fine. Well, that went on for a while. One time they got so frustrated, they came in with about 10 or 11 officers. I think they had a lieutenant was the highest one, and they came in and just stood around.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just there. So
Probably happy to be working that beat. Yeah.
yeah, so there was customers in there. They were standing around. The dancers weren't nude, so I finally turned off the jukebox and told the customers. I said, "Now I want you to watch this. These cops have been training for years to do this. It's how smooth they are." And I just went on. And then I said, "I'm going to tell this girl to dance nude, ask her to.
Uh-huh.
And they're going to arrest her. But you watch how they do it. They're great at this."
Huh.
We got all these police. I just belittled the hell
Yeah.
out of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the dancer got nude. They arrested her. They never did that again.
I wanted to ask you. Most people, people that you'll run into have a healthy fear of law enforcement. How you feel like, my assumption from you is that early on you were game to challenge them. Where did that come from? As far as
I don't know.
you just had it in you.
All I know is that's my right.
Right.
It's mine. People fought and died for it.
Sure.
I'm going to take advantage of it if I can, and if you can monetize it, how great is that?
Was your
So here
brother
I
that
am
way?
fighting. No,
So this is
he's
you.
paranoid.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, nobody in my family's ever
So you
been like
just are.
I don't know anybody like this.
Right.
I don't like to take credit for it because I don't think that I could have done anything else.
Right.
I just, I'm.
But haven't you been curious about where that came from, or how you built that fire in your belly, or
No,
no, it's just there and that's what it is.
that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, keep going. I want to hear more about the the fight with the police.
Oh, so they would then they put an undercover in there for a while.
Uh-huh.
They would put he would come in, and then when he'd sit there and watch the first dancer dance, the second dancer dance, and then when however many I had, and then when the first dancer came up again, they would arrest her and all the other dancers that in between.
Now, would you bail them out, or would
Oh
you?
yeah, oh absolutely. I have never ever left a girl in jail without bailing her out, and the thousands of arrests, and I've never failed to have a lawyer represent one of them. And I'll tell you what, 99 out of 100 cases got dismissed.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a problem. But anyway, they would put an undercover person in there, and so they would take her, arrest those people, the dancers, and they would take them downtown with a manager. They always had to have a manager. I don't know why. They would take them downtown with the manager. So I had to devise a plan because they would empty me out. I wouldn't have any more dancers. So I had to devise a plan. So then I only had 10 or 11 dancers. So I would have a rotation of 3 because I knew what days they were coming. They're creatures of habit.
Sure.
Sundays and Mondays, there's no Vice in Tampa because the Vice Squad didn't work. So I would have the 3 dancers of one, and then she'd get down. The next one would get up. She'd get down. The next one would get up. Then I'd have that first one come in and dance again. But I had 7 more dancers. So what they would do is they would arrest those 3. And all this time, I'm advertising on my sign for them to come watch these cops do this stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So you would arrest those 3, take them downtown. I put up 3 more in the same rotation, same kind of rotation. And they'd drop those girls off, write those complaints or what the charges, or they leave one guy there to do them all. You know, they were kind of trying to get faster.
Sure.
And I'd put the next three up. They'd come back. They'd arrest those three. They'd take them. I put the next three up. They'd come in to arrest them. By that time, the first three were coming back, and some girls got arrested
Multiple
three,
times. Yeah.
4 times a day.
Oh,
And
wow.
then they just decided that was just not going to work.
Sure.
And because we were winning in court, cases were getting dismissed. I got an injunction in Orlando from Judge Reed.
Did you have a club? You had a club in Orlando?
No.
Why was it in Orlando? Oh, federal. Okay.
Yeah, federal. And I got an injunction from him based on that Orznosnik versus Jacksonville.
Sure.
And then they started using zoning laws, which we fought.
You must have been financially doing pretty well at this point to be able to afford bailing everybody out and paying all these attorneys' fees.
Yeah, my partner was a bondsman, so you know most people have to pay 10% bond.
You just had.
I was paying 2 or 3%.
Sure. Okay.
Because that's what the bondsman pays to a surety company.
So they weren't charging you anything over the top.
No.
Right.
Yeah, he was my partner. He was taking half the money.
Yeah,
I was giving him half the profits.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that worked out really well.
How long did that go on for?
It went on for about 3 years.
So this is putting us what, late 70s now? Or?
Yeah. No. Yeah. So yeah, and then we went to the Tanga Lounge.
Tanga Lounge, which is what I've kind of known as the starting point. So tell me, let's talk about that a little bit. Where was that located?
It's on the Causeway, which Frosted there.
And was he your partner for that, or was that a solo venture?
That actually, that was that was me, and we had another partner called Joe DeFreeze.
Okay. Now you've talked a little bit about kind of the pushback from police. And I don't know the answer to this question, so I could be shooting in the dark. But Tampa has a rich history with mafia. Was there any pushback from competition or anybody else wanting to get in the game that you experienced? Or?
Oh, I gotta tell you, the guy.
And if you don't want to talk about it, it's okay too.
Well, it's a mob, and you know.
Sure. I want to be able to turn my car on and leave.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyway, Frank Ditchadoo,
Okay.
who was he had the jukebox in my club. He was there. His jukebox was in that club,
Right.
Dorio's, when I took it, and I just left it there.
Mm-hmm.
And we used it, but he wasn't giving me the service, and he wasn't changing the song. I didn't have the up-to-date songs on my jukebox. He wasn't servicing me
Right.
good enough. So I talked to him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't do anything about it, and I got the same old service. So I got a guy called Lester Rushing. He had a real small jukebox company, and I told him, I said, I'm going to put this Frank out. And Frank wouldn't come get his jukebox. So I'm going to put him out in the street, and you want to put your stuff in there? And he said, yeah. Well, then I started. He did, and I put Frank's stuff out on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
They came and got it. And he said they started sending threats.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and so they didn't. I just didn't pay any attention to it.
Right.
I just, if you're not bothered, if you're not coming over here bothering me, I don't care what you say.
Right.
Same thing as the police. I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they went and talked to Lester, and I guess they pushed Lester around real bad.
Yeah.
And Lester came and took his stuff out of there. So they came back and talked to me, and I said, look, I got nothing against you guys.
I just want a jukebox that works.
I want a jukebox that you service, and you put the latest songs on, and when it breaks down, you send somebody to fix the damn thing.
Yeah.
And because that's your jukebox. If you don't have a jukebox, you're out of business.
Yeah.
So he came back in and put his stuff back in, and he did a good job. They serviced me really well.
Problem solved.
Yeah. I have nothing against anybody.
Sure.
Do your job.
Right. Right.
And so everything turned out okay.
So then Tanga Lounge, how long was that in business?
4 years.
Yeah. And how did that do?
It did well.
And why is it that it went?
Well, it was in business longer than that, but I wasn't. involved in it in the operation. I still owned half of it, but I wasn't in the operation. I'd had a fight with Bobby Rodriguez
Okay.
physically.
Oh yeah.
Actually, he choked me from behind, came up, choked me from behind. I passed out, and he put the boot to me. I was hurt bad.
When was this?
Uh, you know,
Late '70s, early '80s.
yeah.
Yeah. Is that why you left, or?
No, I was. I had already opened. No, no, that's not why I left. I didn't hang around with him,
Sure.
but I opened right after that. I opened up the Mons Venus
Okay, and that's been in business now for what? Going on
30 since 1982.
wow, 82, 92, 92. Yeah. Yeah. Going keep pushing 40 years,
Yeah,
not too long.
yeah.
And that's been a solo venture, right? Or no
Right.
partners there?
That's totally. Yeah, I would go no more part. I wouldn't have any more partners.
Sure.
Oh, in the other business, but not that one.
And so that's, I mean, anybody who's lived here knows Mons Venus. I mean, it's not only statewide. I mean, it's
Yeah.
at least countrywide, if not further.
Well, everybody's doing the same thing we're doing now, or even I'm not going to say worse. I was going to say worse. I don't mean whether, but even they're going a little bit stronger than we do. I said a thing I could defend. I said I can defend a lap dance. I can't defend. I researched the lewd and lascivious laws, the indecent exposure laws. I researched all that. I went to the law
So you're saying
library.
legally defend
I
it?
sit in the, yes,
Okay.
sit in there for 10 years in the law library. That's Bill Wells. I don't know if you
No,
know
I've
that.
heard, I've talked to people, and they've told me about the law library.
Every day I was in it 6, 7 days a week. I was the only layman that had permission to be in the law library. That was when it was in the courthouse.
Right.
I was the only layman that had permission from the head librarian to be in there on the weekends because he knew how I respected the books.
Right.
He used to tell me, "You have more respect for the law than a lot of these judges do."
Sure.
So he would help me, and he left a note downstairs with the guards, and they would let me in on the weekends so I could go up and study. And I have trouble concentrating for long periods of time. My mind, if something else interesting comes along, it'll just my
Yeah.
mind goes
I'm
there.
the same way. Yeah.
So what was I going to say?
Talking about reading the law library, how you could
Yeah,
defend the lap dance as opposed to other things that other businesses were doing.
yeah, and they're well. The lewd and lascivious laws, they actually took me to trial on 3 or 4 of them. The juries would not convict the guy. Actually, they tried a manager
Right.
allowing lewd and lascivious acts, and they did it 3 times, and the jury would not convict for 3 times. And then they learned they couldn't use those
Right.
laws. So a few years later, we got a new administration. They figured they could use the lewd and lascivious laws, but a ruling had come out of the Supreme Court of Florida called the Yum Yum Tree.
Okay. Tell me about that.
Campbell v. State, actually, but
Okay.
the place was the Yum Yum Tree, and it was a gay joint.
Okay.
And a patron that was sitting there was fondling a waiter.
Okay.
Okay, it was a gay joint.
Sure.
He was fondling a waiter, and they arrested him. The police were undercover inside him. They arrested the guy.
Right.
And the Supreme Court of Florida ruled in an appeal to it that there was nobody offended. So they had put into the law that someone had to be offended. If there was nobody offended, there was no violation of the law.
Right.
So we went into Judge Henson, gave him the case. He read it. He said, and who would be offended? It says here, who would be offended in the dark recesses of the Yum Yum Tree? He said, I got to dismiss all these cases. That's an element of the crime.
Right.
Someone has to be offended. So then they quit using that. The zoning, it just I took them to the limit on that it was arbitrary. It denied equal protection. All these things I learned in the law library.
Well, so I wanted to tell you a little bit because we didn't really know each other before today, but my wife and I were prosecutors over in Pinellas County from 2002 to 2005. And my wife, she did the ordinance court. So Fridays, this is over in Pinellas, but it would be Luke LaRoe, it would be Roger Kurland, and it would be all the dancers and the owners from the clubs over in Pinellas. And I remember it was I always joke about the cleavage of the nates of the buttocks. That was the phrase that we were always we had diagrams that we were showing women's butts and where the underwear covered, and they would come in and talk about, and I think a lot of that
Yeah,
over there had to do with liquor licenses because they were covered, but it had to be covered a certain degree,
yeah.
and so the ordinances were
Well,
really big into
that's
knowledge.
where they got their main authority. Otherwise it's freedom of speech, and it's hard to for the government to take your speech away from you if once you get that established.
But the restaurant license and the liquor licenses where they could
Liquor is
assert
a
some.
different story. Now there's a case called California versus LaRue.
Okay.
The dancing was First Amendment protected, but they said that the alcohol, because it in their words were creates bacchanalian revelries.
Back.
And so,
It's quite a phrase.
yeah, so they ruled that the power to regulate alcohol was what they were using to say you couldn't have alcohol where you have nude dancing.
Which is why Mons doesn't have alcohol.
Alcohol.
And was that always the case from the day it opened, or was there a period of time that it served
No,
alcohol?
yeah, that was the case. No, we never had alcohol at
Okay.
the Mons. Had alcohol at the Tanga,
Sure.
of course. Then we went. We lost our alcohol beverage license actually.
Sure.
But I always thought that you couldn't make it without the alcohol. So I opened a club next door to the Tanga in a little place, little building there, and I called it City Council Follies. It was nude.
Yeah.
The dancers had to put the clothes on where the liquor was in the Tanga. So I had it right next door.
Right.
The name was great, City Council Follies, and we started doing business. Then I lost my liquor license, so I just went to the Tanga, closed that place down. And
Was Mons a success from the jump, or what? Did it take a while for it to find its footing? Or
it started slow, but every day it built, it built, it built. There's no place else in the country you can get a lap dance.
sure.
We're the only ones doing it. I mean, they were when they were passing the 6 foot law. A professor at the University of South Florida did a little bit of study on how much money the Mons took in from people from out of town,
Right.
how much people came from out of town. They asked them where they stayed, how much money they spent on food, on lodging, how long they came for, how it flew. And he extrapolated from that how much money was brought to Tampa from the Mons Venus alone. And he said that it had more of a positive financial impact on the city of Tampa than the Buccaneers.
I was waiting for you to go there.
Because they take all your money that you spend there, and they take it out of town, except what they pay the players.
Sure. Wow. When was that study done?
You asked me, don't ask me
Times,
dates.
times, and dates are wrong.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just wondering if
no.
it changed the way you were perceived in the community or changed the way that you were treated.
No,
No.
that was in the middle of the 6 foot, and that was just that was what a what a fiasco.
Sure.
Greco was a nut.
Yeah.
Brr.
Yeah. So, you talked to me about all these cases.
Bob Buckhorn, but he changed.
Well, you talked to me about these cases that kind of impacted you, but at a certain point, you started being involved in cases that were impacting yourself and other people. So when did you start having some of these bigger legal fights?
Well, we had to. They used another tactic, and they used a. What the hell was I going to say? I lost it.
No, that's fine. So I was asking you about legal cases. When did you start going to court a lot? What were some of the bigger issues that you were involved in?
That's about it.
Before the current one?
What you're talking about?
The marijuana
Oh,
one.
the marijuana. Yeah. I didn't do much else. I don't think. I don't remember anything. Anyway.
So the city started to leave you alone after that?
Actually, they charged us with prostitution. That's what I was going to tell you. They came in and charged and arrested my door person for allowing prostitution, and she got convicted.
Right.
And we appealed it all the way up to the Supreme Court of Florida. Manny Machine was the one that appealed it,
Sure.
and the Supreme Court ruled that the statute was unconstitutional because there wasn't enough definitions in there about what prostitution was, what
Was the conviction overturned?
Yes.
Oh wow. So just
Warren
real.
v. State.
What was it?
Warren v. State.
Warren v. State. All right, this is going to be like a law school course for people at Stetson. Um, just for people who don't know, you've got some kind of unique ground rules for how the business is run, which is kind of, I think helped you in some of these cases that are different from other clubs. Can you kind of talk about, well, as far as how you charge people, they kind of come in, make their own money.
Oh, the dancers.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the dancers are self-employed.
All right.
Every other club wants to make them independent contractors. And I just read the code for independent contractors because I saw what was happening. And I read the code for employees and self-employed, all three of them. And I said, why don't I just follow the rules in the self-employed? And here, there's ways they determine. They write all this stuff down for you. There's ways they determine whether you're self-employed or you're an independent contractor.
Right.
And you're self-employed if independent contractor, you have to direct them what the job is. You still pay them, and different things. Well, dancers, I said, let me do this so that it meets the criteria for an employee instead of an independent self-employed, just like you are self-employed. Right. You pay your own taxes, you pick your own hours, you do all those things. So I got to allow the dancers to do that. So no schedules. I don't schedule them. The dancers are smarter than the people that come in to see them. They know when they're coming in. They self-regulate. It's like water seeks its own level. They self-regulate themselves. You can kind of help by saying, today's going to be a good day, or there's a game today, so maybe.
Do you limit how many people can come in on a day, or no limit?
We used to have 100 dancers.
Wow.
It was just the damnedest thing you ever saw in your life. I mean, it was unbelievable there. I was having days $25,000 in that 2,500 square foot little building there.
And did you have to close at any certain time, meaning hours?
They didn't make me close,
okay.
But no, the main thing is we close when the customers go home.
Sure.
We open at 12.
Okay.
So I have an opening time, but not a closing time.
Okay. And I mean, as I understand it, this is why people prefer to work for you over everybody else.
Yeah, because the dancers, they can work 1 day a week. They can work 7 days a week. They can work any hour that they can come in. They just can't leave and come back. That kind of fosters if there was going to be any prostitution.
Or drug use or something off premises.
Well, I do let them go out to smoke a joint.
Sure.
I know that's going to get me in trouble, but, I don't know whether they have a medical, I'll say this, I don't know whether they have a medical marijuana card or not, so I'm not doing anything wrong.
Sure. And another thing that I thought was interesting is that at least at some point, all the managers were women.
They are all.
And that's by design, right?
Absolutely.
Explain that.
Well, you ever try to regulate men around a bunch of nude women?
No, I haven't.
Eventually, they start coercing girls. They start, doing favors for this one. It's apparent. The girls can maybe do them a favor because they're doing him a favor.
Sure.
All that stuff goes on, and how do I deal with that? I don't want to deal with it every time it comes up.
Right.
No male managers.
Right.
Why would I have one when it causes problems? And the ladies know better anyway.
And it
They're
sounds
better
to me
at the
like
job.
Sure, they intuitively they can address the issues of the workers more than a man who maybe doesn't have to deal with
One time I got a lady that was a dyke, and
Okay.
she was taking the habits of the friggin' men.
Right.
She right away, so you
Doing
could
the
tell
same
it's an opposite sex thing.
Yeah.
It's part of human nature, so you just
Well,
have
this
to
gets
deal
back
with
to
it.
your talent that you mentioned is understanding human nature,
Human nature,
understanding
yeah.
logic, and being able to
Apply it to
measure
human
people.
nature.
Yeah, sure. So, but then after Mons, you started getting into other businesses, right?
Yeah, I tried to open other ones, nude clubs. One in Ybor City, which Greco got me on. I can't say bad things enough about Greco. He stunk.
Right.
As a human being and as a mayor.
I actually was at a event not too long ago that he was at, but his son is a judge or was a judge.
Yeah.
and I've been in front of him before. But all right. Well, thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.